Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naham Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Nara Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto the author, Srila Vyasadeva. Hare Krishna, good morning. We are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest. And we are reading from the 3rd canto. And we are reading from the 5th chapter entitled Vidura Talks with Maitreya. And if I'm correct, we are on text 40. So 3, 5, 40. We are going to chant one Sanskrit word at a time. Data.
Data.
Data. Yat.
Yat.
Asmin.
Asmin.
Bhave.
Bhave.
Isha.
Isha.
Jiva.
Jiva.
Tapa.
Tapa.
Trayena.
Trayena.
Abhihata.
Abhihata.
Na. Sharma. Atman.
Atman.
Lapante.
Lapante.
Bhagavan.
Bhagavan.
Tava.
Tava.
Angrichayam.
Angrichayam.
Savidyam.
Savidyam.
Ata.
Ata.
Ashrayema.
Ashrayema.
Tatayadasmin bhavadi isha jiva.
Tatayadasmin bhava isha jivas.
Tapatrayena viata nasharma.
Tapatrayena viata nasharma.
Atman lavante bhagavam stavangri.
Atman lavante bhagavam stavangri.
Shayam savidyam ata ashrayema.
Shayam savidyam ata ashrayema.
Tatayadasmin bhava isha jivas.
Tatayadasmin bhava isha jivas.
Tapatrayena viata nasharma.
Tapatrayena viata nasharma.
Atman labhante bhagavan stavangri.
Atman labhante bhagavan stavangri.
Shayam savidyam mata ashrayema.
Shayam savidyam mata ashrayema.
Tata yadasmin bhava isha jivas.
Tatayadasmin bhava isha jivas.
Tapatrayena viata nasharma.
Tapatrayena viata nasharma.
Atman labhante bhagavan stavangri.
Atman labhante bhagavan stavangri.
Shayam savidyam mata ashrayema.
Shayam savidyam mata ashrayema. Tatayadasmin bhava isha jivas.
Tatam yavashvim bhava isha jivas. Tata tapatrayena viata nasharma.
Atman labhante bhagavan stavangri.
Atmam labhante bhagavan stavangri.
Shayam savidyam mata ashrayema.
Shayam savidya ata ashrayema. Someone online would like to chant the verse?
Sure, I'll chant with you. I'll chant. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. little Davy too, Saraswati.
You want to chant?
Sure. I'll repeat. Is that what you mean?
Oh, no, that's what I mean is leading.
Oh,
Anybody,
no. Sorry.
anybody else would like to lead the verse? The chanting of the verse? Okay, so we go to word for word Sanskrit and translation. Data,
Data,
O Father,
O Father,
Yat,
yeah,
because,
because
Asmin,
Asmin,
in this,
in this
Bhave,
Bhave,
material world,
material world,
Isha,
Isha,
O Lord,
O Lord,
Jiva,
Jiva,
the living
the
entities,
living entities,
Tapa,
Tapa,
miseries,
misery,
Prayena,
Trayena,
by the tree,
by the three,
Abhihata,
Abhihata,
always embarrassed,
always embarrassed,
Na,
Na,
never,
never,
Sharma,
Sharma,
in happiness,
in happiness,
Atman,
Atman,
self,
self,
Labhante,
Labhante,
do gain,
to gain,
Bhagavan,
Bhagavan,
O personality of Godhead,
O personality of Godhead,
Tava,
Tava,
your
your
Angrichayam,
Angrichaya,
shed of your feet,
shade of your feet,
Savidyam,
Savidyam,
full of knowledge,
full of knowledge,
Ata,
Ata,
obtain,
obtain,
Ashrayema,
Ashrayim,
shelter.
shelter,
Translation. O Father, O Lord, O personality of Godhead, the living entities in this material world can never have any happiness because they are overwhelmed by the three kinds of miseries. Therefore, they take shelter of the shade of your lotus feet, which are full of knowledge, and we also thus take shelter of them. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The way of devotional service is neither sentimental nor mundane. It is the path of reality by which the living entity can attain the transcendental happiness of being free from three kinds of material miseries. Miseries arising from the body and mind, from other living entities, and from natural disturbances. Everyone who is conditioned by material existence, whether he be a human, a man or beast, or demigods or bird, must suffer from adhyatmika, bodily or mental pains, adipautika pains, those offered by living creatures, and adidaivaka pains, those due to supernatural disturbances. His happiness is nothing but a hard struggle to get free from the miseries of conditional life. But there is only one way he can be rescued, and that is by accepting the shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The argument that unless one has proper knowledge, one cannot be freed from material miseries is undoubtedly true. But because the lotus feet of the Lord are full of transcendental knowledge, acceptance of the lotus feet completes that necessity. We have already discussed this point in the first canto, 1, 2, 7. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayatya Suvaraikyam Gyanam Chayadahaitukam. There is no want of knowledge in the devotional service of Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead. He is the Lord personally take charge of dissipating the darkness of ignorance from the heart of the devotee. He confirmed in this in Bhagavad Gita 10:10. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam tadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayantite. Empiric philosophical speculation cannot give one relief from the threefold miseries of material existence. Simply to endeavor for knowledge without devoting oneself to the Lord is a waste of valuable time. Hare Krishna. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyana Jala Shalakaya Shakshun Militan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayamupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadam Tikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitas Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Ragunatam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Cha E Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagat Pate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancha Nagorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyacha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvesesha Shunyavadi Paschachade Shatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukanko Tivachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Bande Shri Guru Dejatarinam. So I'm going to read the verse English again. O Father, O Lord, O Personality of Godhead, the living entities in this material world can never have any happiness because they are overwhelmed by the three kinds of miseries. Therefore, they take shelter of the shade of your lotus feet, which are full of knowledge. And we also take shelter of them. Hare Krishna. So I want to situate that verse to remind us where we are at and who's speaking and why. So we are hearing a dialogue. We are hearing a dialogue between Vidura and Maitreya. Vidura, he has been away from what was happening with Krishna, what was happening on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He has been away from what's happening with his own family, the Pandavas. And then he heard from Uddhava, and he heard also from Sajiv that the Lord had departed. The Lord had left this planet and to move on to his pastime. And he heard from Uddhava that before departing, the Lord left a lot of instruction, and he left them to Uddhava, and he also left them to Maitreya Rishi. And thus, Uddhava sent Vidura, say, go and seek refuge, seek shelter of Maitreya Rishi, and Maitreya Rishi will bestow upon you all the knowledge that you want to hear from the instruction of Sri Krishna as he was leaving the planet. And Vidura very humbly approached Maitreya Rishi and inquired about so many things. He inquired, and he started to inquire about he wanted to hear about the creation of the universe, isn't it? Everyone wants to hear about the creation of the universe. Children want to hear about the creation of the universe. Often when we are children, we are more curious. And then so many scientists spend so much time trying to understand the creation of the universe. And then if we didn't have a system of education that kind of heal our spirit of inquiry and discovery, we will be still inquiring like, oh, what is that about? How does that work? How does the sun rise every day and the moon decrease? And how does the grass grow? And why is there different seasons? And why am I aging? Why am I suffering? All those questions are connected with the creation of the universe, even so we tend to not think of them as part of the creation of the universe. So Maitreya answered, and he answered, unfolding the way of the creation, starting with the will of the Lord, because everything is based on the will of the Lord. And there is no part of creation that doesn't include the will of the Lord or the infusion of the Lord or the Lord, because nothing is separated from the Lord, directly or indirectly. And Maitreya described how the Lord, as is desiring, is infusing the inert pradhan, the inert subtle material energy with the living entities to create the Mahatattva, the great truth. And from that Mahatattva, for everything come little by little from subtle to more material or physical or growth. So everything comes from very subtle to like more and more manifesting itself until we manifest the 5 growth elements, starting with ether, which is the most subtle of the growth element, coming from sound. Sounds come first, and after ether, and then from that there is air forming, and then we have fire, and then water and earth, and all coming one at a time with the object of the senses. And the senses are already created, the mind is already created, and then the demigods are created. And the demigods, they are put in charge of those elements. And when they come about, demigods, they don't say, no problem, I get that. Like we tend to do that. We tend to be the Lord of everything and think we can do everything without the Lord. No, the demigod, when they receive their task, they say, oh, we don't know anything. And we are going to take shelter of the Lord, for the Lord is going to empower her. And it's the same thing when at the beginning of the creation of each universe, when the Lord, in the form of Garbhodaka, Shai Vishnu, enter each universe and lay down, then he manifests Lord Brahma, which is the first created being. When Brahma is created and he goes into meditation and he understands that he needs to do something, that's what he does too. He takes shelter of the Lord. He doesn't feel like, I know. He says, I cannot do anything without taking shelter of the Lord. So we can learn from the demigod, learn from Lord Brahma, that before we start everything, we can also turn to the Lord in a helpless way, turn to the Lord in a helpless way, and Tesam Satata Yuktanam Bhajatam Putifuvakam, Dadami Buddhi Yogantam Yenamam Upayantiti, Dadami. That's the point of this verse, Dadami. That Dadami is like the Lord gives us intelligence by which we can come to him. And that intelligence is knowledge, Buddhi yoga, the knowledge of himself. So the demigods, they are glorifying the Lord, that by taking shelter of the shade of the lotus feet of the Lord, we get the knowledge to hold on to his lotus feet. and that knowledge is not separated. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayatyasyubhayagyam Jnanam Chayad Hahaitukam. So by rendering devotional service to Vasudev, one immediately and automatically acquire causeless knowledge, a knowledge that has no cause, and detachment from this world. So by serving the Lord, this starts there. So we want to encourage people to serve the Lord, because we know, we know when we know Krishna, when we understand Krishna consciousness, we know that by engaging people in devotional service, engaging them in hearing, chanting, or serving, or receiving prashadam, any service, any small or big service, like giving donation, receiving, being able to get the source of their labor, like Lakshmi Devi, and engage it in the service of the Lord. In so many ways, we can engage people in the service of the Lord. We know that through that service, even if it's an unknown service, agyata is like non-known service, that the Lord is going to give them knowledge, that knowledge that will little by little give them the intelligence to come closer to Him. So that's a very, very beautiful process. That's a very beautiful mercy of the Lord. The Lord is so merciful. Nam namakari bauda nitya shava shakti tetra pitani maita smarami nakala. Etadrishi tavakripa bhagavan mamatri tudaiva midrisham iya nani jani nanuaga. That this verse is said that the Lord is so merciful. He's so merciful. He's so merciful in so many ways. He wants us back. He doesn't want us to suffer. He's loving us and he wants us back, and he's doing so much to get us back. And so that verse is spoken by Lord Chaitanya 500 years ago. He said, "My Lord, you have hundreds and thousands of names. And in all those names, you have invested your transcendental energy." Like he has invested his transcendental energy in his service, in his lotus feet, and in his name. And he said, yeah, out of your mercy, you have done that. And there is not even hard and fast rule for chanting this name. And anyone can chant this name of the Lord. Anyone can chant any name. There is hundreds and thousands of names. And just by chanting the name of the Lord, one gets to purify his heart. Chetodarpana marjanam. Purify his heart and tap into the chit potency, knowledge potency. So the demigods, they are praising the Lord. And they are saying, because the living entities in the material world, so the conditioned living entities, the conditioned living entity, they can never have any happiness because they are overwhelmed by the three kinds of material suffering. And the Srimad Bhagavatam, we have a lot of knowledge in the Quran. There is a lot of knowledge about God in the Quran. And there is even more knowledge, I would say, in the Bible, the Old Testament. There is more knowledge according to place, time, and circumstance. God gives knowledge of Himself according to the surrender, according to the desire of the living entities. And then in the Bhagavad Gita, there is more knowledge. Krishna speaks directly. And then in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's just expanded so much. There's so much knowledge about so many things. It's so scientific. Threefold misery. And under that umbrella of the threefold misery, we can put everything. So threefold misery, adhyatmika. So I will say adhyatmika is at the core. And the other one kind of go through adhyatmika. Adhyatmika is like misery that directly Atma. Atma can be the body or the mind. So Atma, Atmika. So the body of or the mind. So we have so much, I know I have so much misery coming from my body, and we can all experience that in each part of our body. If we take a square millimeter of any part of our body, that square millimeter have very little potential for happiness. Yeah, very little. Okay, I can rub it. I can just rub that square millimeter. There's some maybe sensation that we can interpret as pleasure. Again, it's a filter. However, every square millimeter of our body has the potential for so much pain. Any one of us, sometimes we bump, our little pinky of our toes into, a chair or an angle or something. It's so much pain. And our pinky of our, little toe is never going to give us that level of happiness. Just, it's not going to happen. But it's very, 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 the potential for misery in the physical body is almost unlimited, it seems, almost unlimited. And then the mind. And I remember when I was going to chemo radiation, I was really suffering in my body. And I was meeting with Mother Nanda, who she also went to cancer before, so it was really good shelter. And she also had something happening. Her finger were cut just a few years later. She went through a lot of physical suffering. And she told me, physical suffering is nothing. You forget about it very quickly. It's so like the mental, the mind, the suffering that come from the mind. Mind include the emotion, thinking, willing, feeling, all that. It's part of the mind. It's so much more difficult to overcome. And at the time, because I was suffering, I was thinking, oh no. And yeah, I can say for sure, the subtle ability of the subtle suffering is greater. And in fact, people who give up their body, people will decide that I'm going to give up that body prematurely. I'm going to kill that body, suicide. They don't understand that whatever suffering that they are undergoing is coming from the subtle body. And there is no way to kill the subtle body. The subtle body is not for us to kill it. We don't have power to kill it. We can annihilate our gross body, but that's not the cessation of misery. In fact, it's a beginning of miseries. Like living entities who don't have a physical body, ghosts like that, they are in so much suffering. They constantly try to attack. They constantly try to do something because they suffer so much. So that Adhyatmika. And then there is the Adibhautika. Adibhautika, everything Bhautika is like other living entities. Other living entities can go like mosquitoes, the food we eat, that give us indigestion, and other living entities is human being. And I will say that probably the main source of miseries outside of my mind is from other living entities. And so that's so specific. We don't think about that. Like, who is thinking of where do my misery come from? And who is finding a place where it spill out in such a precise way than the Srimad Bhagavatam? So the misery from other living entity, Adibhautika. And then there is Adidaivika. Adidaivika, Daivi means demigods. So we, of course, we don't think of miseries coming from the demigods. However, right now we can see there is so much of that. There is floods that are destroying Europe right now. And in another part of Europe, in Spain, there is desert. There is creation of the desert, like the Sahara Desert, now is in Spain. And then in Hawaii, there is big fire that destroy people, houses, villages, towns. There is earthquake. Where there's earthquake? There's earthquake somewhere right now that destroy also. Maybe in Africa or somewhere, or in Asia, there is a big earthquake happening. And earthquake, and you know, here we know in Florida, there is hurricane weather that's insurmountable, weather that can crush us to the ground. So anything that's extremely powerful, extremely out of our power, that is devastating for human being, and that cannot be stopped by any force. Even the wealthy as human being cannot stop a hurricane. It cannot stop. It is powerless in the front of the devas, the demigods, and the suffering coming from them. So that's it. So those are threefold miseries, and most of our life we try to we are trying to counteract those miseries. There is a verse in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Abrahma bhuvana loka puna avartino chuna mamupetya tukonteya puna janma navidyate. So that says, like, from, you know, like the highest planetary system, even the planets, the highest planet of the heavenly planet where the Deva lives, those Deva who create so much suffering for us, there is suffering. There is suffering all over, down to the lower planetary system. Of course, you know, the gradation of suffering is different, but there is everywhere in the material world, there is a place of misery. And the core of the misery of the material world is a repetition of birth and death. Everything has a beginning and an end. How can we live happy knowing that everything has a beginning and an end? Nothing is eternal, nothing is forever. No, like, even if I'm happy today, I have no idea if I'm going to be happy tomorrow. That's our situation in the material world, because it's a place where repeated births and deaths take place. And the only way, that verse said, like, to not take birth again is to take shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, to attend to Krishna's abode. And yeah, so kamasya nandriya priti lobo jivata yavata jivasya tadva vigyasya nartayashtiya karmabi. Kamasya, life desire should never be directly towards sense gratification. As long as we are trying, like, there is a verse from Prahlad Maharaj in regard to that. Sukhaya dukkha mokshaya sankalpayita karmina sadat sadapnoti aya dukkham anihaya sukhavritam. Like Prahlad Maharaj says, so life desire should never be directly towards sense gratification. And Prahlad Maharaj, he says to his little, Prahlad Maharaj is a 5-year-old boy, and, you know, his story is like, he's a pure devotee, and he's born in a demon's family, and his father is constantly trying to crush him. But he doesn't stop speaking about the Lord, because that's what a devotee does. A devotee cannot stop even a moment to glorify the Lord. Glorifying the Lord supporting the living entity, understand their circumstance and their situation. That's a both track of spiritual life, to really understand where I am at, because without knowing where I am at, I'm not going to know how to go where I want to go, and knowing where I want to go. So a devotee always, that's all they want to speak about, that's all they want to do. So he said, Prahlad Maharaj said, I'm going to read it. In this material world, every materialist desires to achieve happiness and diminish his distress. Okay? So we want to achieve happiness and we want to diminish the distress. And therefore, he acts accordingly. So because we always want to create happiness, we are making plan. We are making a committee, constantly making plan. How can create more happiness? Or we are making plan, how can I counteract the distress? You know, I see myself more like making plan to counteract distress. The thing is that it doesn't work, even for the greatest yogi of all time, like Hiranyakashipu, the father of Prahlad Maharaj. He was the greatest yogi of all time. For thousands of years, he stands on one foot and his arm up there like that. Even the ants ate his skin, and he was still standing. He was still able to withstand the threefold misery. He was really capable of withstanding the threefold misery. But even him, he was making plan. He was thinking, okay, I'm going to counteract death. But he wasn't successful. He wasn't successful. So all our plan to be happy, or all our plan to, oh, my leg fell asleep. All our plan to counteract material miseries are going to fail. There is no way. And Prahlad Maharaj is very humoristic. He said, actually, however, one is happy as long as one does not endeavor for happiness. So if we don't endeavor for happiness, if we don't make plan and endeavor to counteract distress, then that position can create opening the space for happiness. So it's kind of a saying that everything is complete and perfect and coming to a place of accepting. So when we don't make plan, that means that we surrender. I surrender to the level of happiness I have. I surrender to the level of distress I have. Because happiness and distress come and go like summer and matrasparsas tu kunteya shitosna shukadukada agama panyo nityam daksha swabharata. In a Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says happiness and distress come and go like winter and summer season. And when we know that, we handle it. We learn to tolerate it without being disturbed. So when we tolerate happiness and distress, I know tolerating happiness is very difficult. When we tolerate happiness and distress, then Prahlad Maharaj said, actually, however, one is happy as long as one does not endeavor for happiness. As soon as one begins his activities for happiness, his condition of distress begin. That's fun. I think Prahlad Maharaj is so funny. So as soon as we're trying for happiness or trying to counteract the misery, then our miserable condition and creator begins. So karmasya. So we should, let's not do that. But still, as a sage, Sutta Goswami said, we should endeavor for a self-preservation. It's not like we neglect ourselves. Our self-preservation, a healthy life. We want a healthy life, we want self-preservation, because without that self-preservation, a healthy life, it's difficult to take shelter of the Lotus feet of Krishna. And he said, okay, so spend your energy minimally for self-preservation. And what do? Inquire, because we are supposed to inquire about the absolute truth, about the nature of the absolute truth. And nothing else should be the goal of our work. Nothing else supposed to be the goal of our work. And we are not the doer anyway. You know, it's already predestined. Our level of happiness and distress is already predestined by our desire and activities from previous life. So why should we put energy and our mental energy or physical energy to endeavor towards something that's already predestined? That's just a question we can ask ourselves. You know, like spiritual life is not so much about the response. It's more about being a question and then receiving knowledge from the Lord, Dadami, Buddhiyo, Dagamtam. And so an understanding that understanding that we are not the doer. Prakriti kriyamanani guna karmani sarvasam ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate ahankara vidunyatma kartaham iti manyate. So everything is done by material nature. Everything is done by material nature. Everything is taking place, and everything is done by material nature. It's all organized. By its organization, everything is taking place. And it's done by the true mode of material nature. And because we are bewildered by false ego means false identification, identifying with what we are not, which means the doer, identifying with I am this body, I am this person, I can control things. So as long as we have that ahankara, then we think kartaham. We think that I am manyati, our mind. We think that we are the doer of things. Like, what doer are we? Any minute, something can happen that can destroy everything. And things happen because of the will of the Lord. So that's why the demigods, they decide, let's approach the Lord to get instruction. And then, because the Lord is Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam, Hiddeshe Arjunati Stati, Brahmayam Sarva Bhutani, Yantra Udani Mayaya. Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam, like Ishwar, like the Supreme Controller is inside our heart, Sarvasya, and he directs the wandering of all living entities. He directs our wandering. The Lord is in the Lord in the heart, the Holy Spirit, Paramatma, Chaitya-Guru. I have a dear friend from Boston that just passed away on Thursday. His name was Chaitya-Guru. Chaitya-Guru is the guru inside the heart, Chaitya-Guru. He directs our wandering. He directs the wandering of all the living entities who are put on a machine. We are put on a machine that are made of the three modes of material nature. So I have a machine with a set of nostril, a set of mouth, test, ears. I have a set of senses. I have a set of my mind, my intelligence, my false ego. That's a machine. And to put too much energy in changing the machine is also a diversion. I want to take the machine as it is, and not trying to make plan to change the machine too much, but make plan to take the machine where I want to go, which is at the lotus feet of Krishna. I have a friend in Germany, and she like in her mind, when she goes about her life, she visualized the lotus feet of Krishna. And we can see picture of the lotus feet of Krishna. We can see deities. We can choose like, and she visualized herself bowing down and cradling herself at the lotus feet of Krishna in a very physical, tangible way. And she shared often how things change when she remembered to do that and when she practiced doing that. So we can also practice, like the demigods are telling us that by doing that, we are going to step out of being under those threefold miseries. Not that they are going to stop, the hurricane is going to come, but we are not going to be affected by the hurricane. Our mind is going to be a source of misery, but we are not going to be affected. We are made of the 5 gross elements and 3 subtle elements, and the soul combined with those 5 gross elements and 3 subtle elements. The soul, us, the living entity, eternal living entity, full of bliss, knowledge, and eternity, combined with this body. So things are going to happen to that body, things are going to continue. However, I am not. And so when we understand that, by the activities of sheltering ourselves under the lotus feet of Krishna, then those things don't affect us anymore. We become transcendental to them. Like so many things happened to Prahlad Maharaj. He was put in a boiling oil. It's literal. We want to think about it, not think, oh, that's just a story. That's literal. And he wasn't burned. He was put in a cave full of venomous snake. And he wasn't poisoned by the snake. He was given poison. He wasn't poisoned either. Because he wasn't affected. His being wasn't affected. He had achieved spiritual body. Because like if we take an iron rod, a real iron rod, an iron rod is cold and black and heavy and it doesn't have the power to burn anything. So it's like that, our body is like that. It's heavy, it's really heavy. But if we put an iron rod in a fire for some time, the iron rod take the quality of the fire. The iron become red and hot. And in fact, if we take out the iron rod, we can touch something else and the iron rod will act like fire. It will burn whatever it touches. So similarly, when we take shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna, worship his lotus feet, serve his lotus feet, and we acquire a spiritual body. And that spiritual body is not anymore identifying with the gross heaviness, density of the material energy. And also that spiritual body has the power to also spiritualize other people's body. And the best way to do that, the best way to take shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna, the more effective way, Harinam, 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 Eva Kevalam, Talaunaste, Eva Naste, Eva Gatir, Anyata. So the only way, the most effective way is Harinam, Harinam, to chant the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram, 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 Hare Hare. All knowledge is going to be bestowed upon us when we chant the holy name of the Lord, because that's the service the Lord is giving us. In this age of Kali, it's in this age of Kali, like we do all our sacrifice, all our austerity, all our charity, every religious act are performed by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Everything is performed by chanting the holy name of the Lord. And then, of course, we can receive knowledge, and a way to receive knowledge is to absorb ourselves in hearing from Srila Prabhupada. Again, we can endeavoring for knowledge separately from Krishna. It's not going to bring us anywhere. However, when we read Srila Prabhupada's book, we hear from Srila Prabhupada. Hearing and chanting, hearing, Shravanam, Kirtanam is also service. There is 9 limbs of devotional service. And start with hearing, Shravanam. So hearing from a source of knowledge, hearing from that iron rod that is completely transformed into fire. Srila Prabhupada as a spiritual body is 100% not under the threefold misery, is not under the laws of material nature. He plays as if he's under the law of material nature to reach us. However, he's not. And by connecting with Srila Prabhupada, by connecting, we are connecting with the fire. And we can also become hot and red, even so we are dense, dark, and cold. And by connecting with Srila Prabhupada through hearing from him, and a way that I love hearing from Srila Prabhupada is reading his books. He gave us so many books. He got up every day at 2:30 in the morning to give us book. So it's very important. It's very important. He showed us in his life that it was his priority. So if it was his priority of the pure devotees to write his book, it should become our priorities to read them, to make that a priority, that every day I'm going to spend time reading Srila Prabhupada's books. And then, remembering that happened in the silence. Remembering is like meditating. Remembering, sometimes Srila Prabhupada say meditating. So those two words, remembering, meditating, they are synonymous in some ways. And then Vandanam is praying. So to cultivate our inner life, to cultivate silence in our life, to be with the Lord are also limbs of devotional service. I'm going to stop here and read again the verse. Datta yadasmin bhavad isha jivas tapatrayena biata nasharma atman labante bhagavan stavangri chayam savidyamata ashrayema. Oh Father, I love that. They say the demigods, they say, oh Father. It's so beautiful. Datta. Oh Father, oh Lord, oh personality of Godhead. The living entities in the material world, that's us, can never have any happiness because they are overwhelmed by the 3 kinds of miseries. Therefore, they take shelter of the shade of your lotus feet, which are full of knowledge, and we also thus take shelter of them. So the demigods, they show example, they take shelter. In a word for one, there is abhihata, and is always embarrassed. Srila Prabhupada said, like, it's so embarrassing. And we want to feel that embarrassment. It's so embarrassing to be in a body of a woman in Kali Yoga in 2023, having no knowledge, no education, no culture, no ability for austerities, no ability for compassion, no ability for cleanliness. How embarrassing is that? The spirit soul is so glorious. And I used to be, even in this material world, very elevated. I used to be the most elevated being in this material world. But I embarrassed myself so much that I arrived in that degraded, like, phase of life, of form of life. And we want to feel that embarrassment. I like that word. Prabhupada use it a lot. Always embarrassed. We are always embarrassed. Just living in this material world without Krishna is embarrassing. Hare Krishna. Any comment, question? Anything sharing?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear Kim.
I don't actually have a question. I just have an appreciation. I also love the passage you were quoting that Prabhupada, and that Prahlad Maharaj is when you're going to be the most miserable. I don't remember hearing that, and that was so true. It's so amazing. So I love that. And then just in the verse, translating that as overwhelmed by that really resonated with me too, because that is probably the word I use more than any other word, feeling overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed. So it was just interesting that he used that as a way to say that, overwhelmed by these modes of material nature. So that was all. That's all. And thank you for your class. I appreciate it.
Yeah, overwhelmed by the threefold misery, overwhelmed by material. It's so overwhelming. To try to live identifying with the body, identifying with I need to take care of myself, I am the controller, I am the doer. It's so extremely overwhelming because we are not going to win. The material energy is Mama Maya. It's an energy of the Lord. It has all potency of the Lord infused in his material energy. We are not going to win, so it's overwhelming. It's like a little child trying to make a living. It's overwhelming. It's impossible. Any other question?
Yeah, just even what you just said, I just also, it brings me back to what we keep saying is to just, rely on Krishna. And the reason we're overwhelmed is a lot of times just because we're not doing that. We're trying to fix everything or somehow think we're going to make everything good and not relying. So yeah, just in your comment, that made me think of that. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, we are an illusion. It's our ankara, vimudatma, vimuda. It's like muda. Yeah, we have so much false identification that we think we can fix it. We can fix the material energy. We can fix our situation. We can control what's going to happen tomorrow. It's ludicrous. Yeah. But what we can do is desire to be with Krishna, desire to make progress in spiritual life, desire to know about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, desire to understand him, feel him, experience him, serve him, give him joy, give him satisfaction. That we can do. Thank you. There is another verse from Prahlad Maharaj that I brought with me, so I'm going to read it. It's another part of the seventh canto when Prahlad Maharaj prayed to Lord Nrsingadev. He said, my Lord Nrsingadev, O Supreme, because of bodily conception of life, embodied soul neglected and not cared for by you, cannot do anything for their betterment. Whatever remedies they accept, also perhaps temporarily beneficial, are certainly impermanent. For example, a father and mother cannot protect their child. A physician and medicine cannot relieve a suffering patient. And a boat on the ocean cannot protect a drowning man. The last part I really like because I was on boat quite a lot. Well, comparing to most people, I went on boat many years during my teenage years, but then in my young adulthood, I traveled for 2 years, and practically 2 years I was on boats. And I knew that. I knew, like, people may think that, oh, if you're on boat and you fall in the water, that's okay, the boat is going to save you. But in less than a minute, you disappear. When you're in the middle of the ocean with all the waves, if you fall in the water, you're finished. The boat is not going to save you. And the same thing, a mother and a father, of course, their responsibility is to protect their children, but to think that they are ultimate shelter for their children, to think that they can change the destiny of their children, it's the same. It's ankara, it's false, it's illusion, it's false identification. And with medicine, and we are having like a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I did a group coaching, a group healing called Being Healed, where we discuss like, yeah, It's being healed happen again by the will of the Lord. Mare Krishna Rake Ke Rake Krishna Mare Ke. When Krishna wants to save you, no one can kill you. And if Krishna wants to kill you, no one can save you. So without the input of the Lord, nothing can happen. And with input of the Lord, everything can happen. Like Christ was healing people in a moment notice right there, because he had a full input of the Lord. And of course, the material energy can move. The planet move all the time, the sky, the air, all those 5 elements move all the time. And when there is a blockage of the life force inside our body, that blockage can be removed in a moment notice. And disease can just go away. And disease are carrying of our karma. So they are here to help us too. Hare Krishna. Anasuya Prabhu, you have your hand raised. Hare Krishna, Anasuya, you're on mute.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying your class, and I wanted to let you know that we had a guest at Prabhupada's house that is a geologist, and Lakshmi Priya, I wish she was with us this morning. She after the guest had been with us like 4 days, like naturally we came up with conversation like when you were saying how the different universes are created, and Lakshmi Priya was like saying, well, you know, what is your theory on how this earth was created, and he's like, oh, that's a very interesting question. We drill deep and we get a sample and we can see what creatures existed, what era and time. And she's like, no, like how did how did this, was there a higher power? And so we went into the Big Bang theory and the black hole theory, and so it's so engaging and really made him, like pause and really consider, like, there's a higher intelligence that's behind this creation, and he wants to come back again. So he wants more knowledge and some more stimulating conversation. And so I just I'm just feeling how much this knowledge is coming from, this wisdom is benefiting everyone. And then I had a session, a partner exchange yesterday through the PPTC program, and it was just, again, finding community. Like there's a real interest in Savatov and Bhakti, and I'm inviting this individual and his wife to maybe come tomorrow. So I'm hoping they will say yes. So yeah, I'm just sharing my enthusiasm and appreciation and loving our association and wanting to share this knowledge with others wherever I'm at.
Yeah.
So I just say thank you, and this person was so amazed that the programs are held like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like there's a extenuating circumstances. There's like so much appreciation for this dedication to come together.
Come together to speak philosophy.
Yes.
To inquire about the purpose of human life, to inquire about the absolute truth. And that's wonderful that Judge genealogist was in contact with you and Lakshmi Priya Prabhu, and came to a place of inquiring. It's not about having all, because scientists, they come to a place, we need to have the answer. And they think they have the answer. But it's close-ended. It's close-ended. And so to support them to become open-ended, like, oh, yeah, even if I drill the earth and find whatever I find, whatever I find came from somewhere.
Yeah.
And even if I can create laws, but those laws existed before I created them. And so what's the organization? What like that? That's fascinating to bring people to inquiry about this absolute truth. And then when that is there, then the inquiry itself leads to, if the person is sincere in their hearts, lead to receive more knowledge and to be guided to encounter the people that are going to give more and more knowledge. And of course, encounter Srila Prabhupada and the Srimad Bhagavatam, because the light, all the light, what's light yoga is the brightness of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The brightness of Srimad Bhagavatam is what gives the light to Kali Yoga. Thank you. Very beautiful.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Any other comment, question? Thank you all for being here. I appreciate your association. Entourage Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Aprimanande Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Malini.
Thank you.